Hi, I'm Deanna Springer with fun Stitch It Sisters felt sewing projects by Mary Mulari. First, we'll introduce today's Stitch It Sisters guest. You may have tuned into Sewing with Nancy and watched as Nancy and Mary sewed sweatshirts, appliques, travel accessories, aprons, and more. Welcome back to Stitch It Sisters, Mary.
Thanks, Deanna. I'm really glad to be here with Team NZP and the Stitch It Sisters. Today, we'll be making 6 of my easy Felt So Smart projects, all made with pre-cut wool felt.
Now let's take a look at the projects we're making today. We'll be sewing Mary's 3-button bowl, her scissors keepers, gift totes, gift tote collars, wedge bowls, and mitten gift card holders. We'll be using wool felt, Clover's 5-in-1 sliding gauge, double-sided basting tape, a pinking shears, Schmetz Chrome Universal Needles size 90, and our Bernina B77 sewing machine. We'll start our Felt So Smart projects with Mary's 3-button bowl. All of Mary's projects are made with easy 9-inch by 12-inch wool felt cuts.
This is the bowl, Deanna. I like to use 2 different colors, and there are 3 buttons that are turn this into a bowl, but it starts out as a flat piece.
That's
like
amazing.
This.
When you showed this to me, I thought it was so clever.
Yes, it's fun, and it turns out to be, I call it a soft landing for someone's keys or jewelry. So these projects are all made with the 9 by 12, as we've mentioned. Wool felt often comes in a 12 by 18 piece, so you actually get 2 pieces for 1. But I often just cut these in half and use them, mixing colors.
Because
it's more
all
fun.
of your 12 projects use just that half size.
That's right, yeah. So I was inspired to make a pattern and to do more felt projects after developing some patterns for local libraries in Minnesota. And I first developed this treasure bag. There are 4 pieces of felt that are sewn together, and then you include some yarn, and you have a nice little bag that, well, it can hold just about anything, from golf balls to just anybody's treasures. And another version of that bag has handles, so this has become something like an Easter basket or a gift bag, if you'd like. So those are what inspired
and
me.
And they're so easy. They're so easy to sew. In fact, so easy to sew that when I taught at the Wisconsin 4-H Forum last fall, this is the project. I called you and said, Mary, can I buy your kits and teach this at the Fall 4-H Forum? It's so easy. Right. Anyone with any, actually 0 experience, you don't need any sewing experience, can make these with your easy directions.
And they also can be sewn by hand, too.
Right.
So for a beginner or some, but they're practical, they're useful, and they're clever. So that's what I like about them.
Great starting inspiration, and then you took it a step further.
That's right. So the 3-button bowl was the next project. So this is then how we put this together. We need 2 pieces of felt, and these actually were cut down to 9 by 9-inch squares. Now, I always save the scraps because they're going to be handy down the road on some other project. But to connect them, we have this piece of Wonder Under, which we're going to fuse onto, let's say, the blue piece. We peel off the paper, and then we press or fuse so that the 2 pieces together are really very stable and firm.
Once you fuse that with the heat of an iron, that becomes one piece of fabric that's twice as thick as the original.
Very stable. And so here we have those pieces fused. And when I flip this over, you'll see that I've done some tracing. Here is my pattern. It's kind of an odd-looking one, but we would use a marking pen, such as this friction pen, to mark all of the lines. These are actually stitching lines. So we're leaving space all the way around a little bit, around all of the edges so that we can stitch and then clean finish a little later.
So once we trace this, don't cut it out. This becomes your stitching line.
Right. And then the other thing we mark are lines between the sections. So we're drawing a triangle here. between the three sections.
So we'll move the pattern aside, and you can see that that center base of the bowl became a triangle, and you can see that too on the finished bowl. That's a
Right.
triangle, and that's how you have those three sections that you button.
And so I would first of all sew the triangle. And you can see here I have actually two triangles. I'd sew a second one about 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch inside the original triangle. And then I sew on my lines. I sew all the way around. I sew slowly here around these curves. I mean, it's just safer. And work my way around and still until I have stitched all the way around my shape.
So maybe set your machine for a 2.5 or millimeter stitch length.
Right.
You don't want it too long for those corners.
To guide around
like
the
you
corners.
said, slow and steady and shorter
Right.
stitch length. And you could even echo quilt inside of that too.
Oh, right. You could monogram with a applique or embroidery.
Right. Put a little something special in there. And my
Right.
sister Denise would put a triangle shape embroidery in there, machine embroidery.
She probably would, yeah. So then our next step is to cut. And I like to use a pinking shears for this because you need to do some careful guiding. A lot of people like a rotary cutter, and that will work. But first of all, I would cut my way maybe about an 1/8 of an inch from the stitching line, and I'd work my way. This is a slow cutting
and take your time
step. Yes.
And you at home won't have to show the camera what you're doing. So Mary's showing the camera and kind of at an angle, but
Right.
you would be looking straight on and cutting.
And then at the end, you would cut carefully into these areas here that are just need a little more
Sure, like you
guidance.
have here.
Right. So that's the next step. And this sample we have following shows how I actually cut one layer straight and one layer with the pinking shears, doing that very carefully, of course.
And that was one of your prototypes, so you didn't fuse that together yet. You hadn't created that fusing technique.
Right. It is quite stable, but I really like the fusing step added in.
Right. So this
to
this is sort of a hand-stitched option. No sewing machine, no fusing.
Right. So it does show too that you
different
can
variation.
make it by hand if you wish. To do the buttonhole and sew the button on by machine, that is another feature that you can add.
So these buttonholes, and with your fused option, you can just cut. Just
That's
cut a
right.
straight line for the buttonhole. And
I cut it about 1/4 of an inch longer than the diameter of the
to
button.
accommodate that
Right,
button.
yeah.
And if you have a sewing machine, then you would stitch a buttonhole.
Yeah, that's right,
Right.
if you prefer. So then we can look at some other variations too. And I actually, on this sample, I decided to sew a second set of buttons. I wanted to see buttons on each side. It's something totally optional, but kind of fun too.
Sure, so this one only has buttons on one side.
Right.
That means you can only button it one way, or the button, I guess, would be on the inside.
Sure, you have that. I call these reversible.
Sure.
So you can, by simply pressing on this layer, you can push out the second layer
Sure.
and have something different. Yes.
Right. You could change the seasons. So
Right.
mustard for fall and a different
Right.
color for winter. Sure.
And then you can cut up your old blue jeans. For jeans, I would add some interfacing also to give a little extra strength.
Great, and to keep
the
it
bowl.
from fraying too far.
Right.
With that cut edge denim, with felt, that won't ravel.
Correct,
With
correct.
woven fabrics like denim, that's going to ravel, but that's the look we're going for here.
Right,
We
right.
want that to ravel a little bit, but not too far. But when you do that stabilized stitching in there, that holds the fabric too.
It does. And then we have a variation with laminated.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, this is nice shiny on the outside and green felt inside. But then again, if you want to reverse this, you simply, now you have a lined bowl.
Sure.
So if you
So
spill.
the right side and the other right side.
Yeah,
And the
that's
buttons
right.
are in that inside or outside. And like you said on this one, if you put buttons on both sides,
Right.
then you'd have buttons on both sides of the finished bowl.
Lots of fun. This is a great project.
It's a great project and quick to make, fast to make, and fun to make. So it's a fast, fun project that almost anyone can do if you can do a little straight stitching with your sewing machine.
That's right.
The next Felt So Smart project we're making today is Mary's Scissors Keeper.
This is, I think, a lot of fun, Deanna, and smart and safe, a safe way to keep your scissors. You make both of these from one piece of 9 by 12 inch felt. And what holds the scissors in the keeper is this loop that goes through the hole of the scissors. And there's also at the bottom an extra layer of felt, so the tip can't break through. So we make this by drawing some lines on our piece of felt. So we'll do that next.
It's amazing to me that both of these are made from one rectangle.
That's right. Our first lines are it's a 5-inch square from this corner. And then we draw one 5-inch line up to this point, and then we draw a line from that point to the opposite corner over here. This is with the marking pen that gives us a nice dark line.
And there's no need to remember these measurements and dimensions because Mary included them in her Felt So Smart pattern.
So here we have a large piece, and we have yet one more triangle in this corner. So we're going to cut this piece apart, and we'll look next at what it looks like when we've done all of this cutting.
So this is just cut with a straight scissors.
That's right. Now you could use a pinking shears on this, or a rotary cutter with a pinking blade.
But this one you pinked.
That's right.
And then this one was straight. Sure.
That's it. So you have options here. And this large piece is actually a scrap that you're going to save for another project.
That's the most unique looking shaped scrap I've ever seen, Mary.
Right.
But save all the scraps.
Yeah. And then we're going to start with this 5-inch square. This will make our scissors keeper for a small pair of scissors. So we'll move this aside.
Oh, I'll take that, Mary. And I know that the 5-inch square you showed me earlier was made for this sample.
That's it. I draw lines, diagonal lines, again with the marking pen. And
just corner to corner in both directions.
And then I'm going to cut away one of these quarters. And on my next sample, you can see that I took that corner cut from here.
It was cut right from there.
And then it's placed on this corner. You sew it down. And here's again where we use that high contrast thread so you can see more easily. And it's really handy to use these wonder clips.
Use wonder clips instead of pins.
Right.
It's a little bit thick and it could bend your pins.
So this is how the next step. And then the very last one is this piece. Well, not almost the last one. You can see here how there's that double layer here.
And that's here. So when you fold this one, let's start with this one. After you folded that up and met the long cut edges.
Right.
And then those wonder clips will still handle those thick layers.
They sure will. So
and that underneath there is that double layer. So now you have like 4 layers here.
Sure.
But it's still easy to sew.
It really is. So you can then proceed to sew that last seam. And then to complete this so it holds the scissors in place, we're going to use the little Velcro dots. And I'll place one here on this corner. Now, these are not the stick-on. Now, we won't try to sew through these because that's dangerous.
Right.
But what I've found on the felt is that if you really kind of rub hard and spend a little time at making that adhere, it will stick. And you just need to open and close it carefully. Let's take these scissors out and put them in because we need to kind of plan where that next dot will be.
We're fitting.
Yeah.
We're fitting our scissors. And this is the soft loop side.
Right.
So this is the fuzzy soft loop side.
So by putting this in, we can judge where to place that second part of the Velcro.
So it's custom made for your own scissors.
Really? Yeah, that's for sure. So I'll undo that, and I think that was about the
rough
right
side
place.
now.
Yeah.
That's the scratchy side.
Yeah. So here we have our scissor keeper all complete.
Amazing. And just 2 stitching lines, Mary.
That's all.
One here, and it's just a square.
It is.
A square, 1 stitching line, meet those long cut edges, and stitch, and add a couple of hook and loop dots, and you're all set.
That's all you have to do.
What if my scissors is larger? I have an 8.5 inch dressmaker shears.
Well, we've got that solved too because we had that odd piece that we cut. I drew the line. And so here is that piece with that extra corner sewn on, same as before.
So now we know that's for the tip of the shears, so it won't poke through.
And then we'll bring this corner up
I have a Wonder Clip.
This is beautiful. This wool felt is beautiful.
It's amazing the multiple colors that the wool felt is made from. It feels luxurious and it's pretty. It's not one solid color.
Right.
It's kind of mottled and multiple colors are kind of showing some dark and light.
And so this is the same thing then, Deanna. We have that one further seam to sew. Now this is long, but when we put the larger scissors
I happen
in
to have
here,
one.
we need to just make sure that we have enough space to get
And
that
this
loop.
would be sewn, of course.
And actually we can turn that around and pull the loop through
Right through the handle hole.
Yeah, and attach it. So now when you travel to a sewing or quilting event, you can use this and your scissors will stay safe and sharp and they're not going to damage anything.
Protected, and your scissors holder will be the envy of all your classmates at class.
I think so. I think so.
Our next Felt So Smart project is 2-in-1, really. It's a gift tote and an optional gift tote collar.
An easy way to have gift wrap. In case you don't have anything at home, you can sew your own. And I really like the quick and easy element of this tote bag. We have some samples here to show you some of the ways to do it. The handles are sewn on. I've used a pinking blade on the top edge, and then this one got turned down with the pinking edge. And then this one is a simple, just straight edge sewn down. So
and it has a pocket.
Yeah, right. That's another option that you can add. And these are recyclable too, so the person who gets it can keep passing it on.
That's wonderful.
So the steps are easy again. This time we have, well, 2 pieces of 9 by 12 felt. And we cut off from one end 2 1-inch strips. So each of these rectangles now are just a little bit smaller, and these will become the handles of the tote. So we'll set those aside. Actually, I'm going to flip this over because the first step will be to actually sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the 3 sides. A really simple sewing here, Deanna.
Just straight stitching around 3 edges only, leaving the top open.
And then you'll sew, to get a corner on this, you'll sew a 3-inch row of stitching across the bottom. These kind of look like ears, but they form the square or rectangular bottom of the tote bag. So next,
we call them gussets.
Oh, well, and these can be trimmed off too if you don't want a lot of bulk. So next, I'll turn this right side out. We're going to mark the center of the top edge on both sides of the tote bag. And we're going to then also mark 1 1/4 inches on each side of that center mark. Now you can see how I've done that marking here on the tote, so I can follow that. And this is going to tell us where to place the handles. Now this is one handle, and the other one I've completed already. I folded this one in half. I've placed a pin 1 1/2 inch from each end.
So you folded meeting the long edges.
Right, yeah. And then I sewed between the pins. So this is just a really close seam.
So about 1 inch and a 1/4 inch and a half?
Right, right. So that way now I can we'll remove the pin, and I can take this handle to the bag at the mark I've placed. And now I can sew those in place.
Now you could pin that, but we always like to tape baste. So we like to use a little section of Clover's double-sided basting tape, and you just cut a little section and put it underneath there, peel off that paper backing, and that's tape basted right in place.
Sure, works really well. And then I just sew a square around.
Sure, we can see it on the blue one too.
Now and here, with some of my scraps, I can make different color handles. If I want to.
Contrasting. Yeah, that's why we save our scraps. We save our wool felt scraps.
Yeah. Now you can make this really elaborate. Actually, what would be nice too is your sister Denise is probably going to embroider on one side.
She would machine embroider it. Dana would put a quilt block on here.
Yeah. Well,
top stitch
so whatever.
Or an applique.
Or a
My
pocket.
friend Mary Mulari would put an applique.
Yeah, right. So you can make them, as elaborate, as I say, as you want to, but for quick and easy, and yet strong and desirable and recyclable. You just can't go wrong with this gift bag.
Right, and you've cut the top edge of this one with the pinking, the 45 millimeter pinking blade, or you could use, we do have the, if you have a pinking shears, this would be a great place to use it too.
Sure. So that's all there is to this.
Amazing. But the different top edges, like you mentioned before, you could fold it over, leave it straight cut, many options.
That's right. But
there's another.
Oh boy, to make it even better, we're going to add a collar. When you fill your gift bag, you put your stuff in there, and then you got to figure out a way to keep it
unless
closed.
You or put tissue paper to hide what's in there. I don't want my gift receiver to know what's in there.
No.
When you said that you were developing a gift bag collar, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Mary?
Yeah, really.
This is so clever. So clever.
So this is an 8-inch square of felt, and it has an opening which is the width of the handles here.
This is amazing.
And so it goes on top, and it's going to hold the bag closed and decorate as well.
It's so easy, but yet it's such a clever decoration, and it really makes a nice theme. It changes the whole look of the gift. No sewing, because you use Pell and Wonder on it.
No, but you could sew if you want to. You have lots of options here with this collar. And this would be the first opportunity here. We're going to use some Wonder Under to fuse on felt. And then we just trace nickels and quarters. And we cut those out and fuse them then on this.
And the directions are in your pattern. You said that was an 8-inch square. And then you cut a slit in the middle. And then embellish.
That's right. And we have a stitched one.
Right. Instead of doing fused dots, you could do some decorative stitches on your sewing machine. You know, we all have those decorative stitches
and we don't
on our
use
sewing
them
machine,
very
and
often.
we want to use them. Here's the perfect application for that. And this is a nice gradual, of course you'd use a cutting mat, a nice gradual curve that you could cut that curve, just free form cut that curve, and then use your presser foot edge to mirror image that curve and sew multiple stitches of decorative stitches. And you took it a step further.
I did. I added my sister's initials. There's an alphabet included on the pattern, and so that really personalizes.
It really does, and we don't want to touch the iron directly to the wool felt, so we use a press cloth,
That's
an easy
right.
view press cloth.
That's the best plan.
And look at this.
Well, I call this felt pasta. Bow tie pasta, again with scraps, and then you add the button here in the top. So these are really simple ways to do the gift bag collar, but you can invent lots
really
of your
fun.
own.
This is a blank slate for you to really decorate this. You know, you could do.
It goes on a paper bag.
It
too.
does. You could also do machine embroidery.
Yes, yes.
And if you wanted to make, this was, I thought, very clever too. You have a paper gift bag to reuse and repurpose. Look at this. This fits right over.
Yeah. So.
And you could coordinate the design of your paper bag by fusing some of those same dots. And you just applied Pell and Wonder Under to a felt rectangle. And you traced a 25-cent piece, a quarter, and a nickel too, I see.
Yeah. So it's lots of possibilities here.
Amazing, Mary. I look forward to receiving a gift from you soon.
Oh, okay.
The next Felt So Smart project we're making is the Wedge Bowl.
Here we have some samples of the various ways to make the bowl. Here I have about a 4-inch diameter in the bottom. I've cut with the pinking shears or the rotary cutting blade. And then I got a really colorful one here, and I've added some handles at the top too, just for fun. And then the next bowl has the 5-inch diameter base, so it's a lower, flatter bowl.
Yeah, the sides are shorter.
Yes, that's
so
right.
So the larger the center, the shorter the bowl sides.
That's right. And then the last one
look
has
at the tall
handles.
One. Look at those two.
That's a 3-inch diameter, so that makes a taller bowl, and again, handles on the edges.
On there.
This is really easy to make. And we start again with 9-inch squares of felt. In our previous project, we fused them together using a piece of Pellin's Wonder Under.
And you always like to use different colors of wool felt on both sides.
Maybe it's a problem I have, but I think they're more fun.
It's fun.
And this again you can reverse because you could have all of the seams come into
and look
the
at
center.
That.
Yeah.
It's like piping.
Right.
Sure.
So you have the double color
Sure.
effect.
Sure.
So that's
Fun, Mary.
what I like.
Neat. Okay.
So after fusing,
We have 2 layers fused together.
Right. I'm going to flip this over to show how I've traced the pattern. The pattern is available. It's shown as a half circle with the 5, 4, and 3-inch diameter circles.
And
but
this
you
is
need
included. A version of this is included in your pattern.
That's right. So you don't have to create your own. And here we see it on felt. Again, you leave a little bit of space all the way around. And then it's important to mark these. These are the wedge marks, 8 of them all the way around the circle. And I like to mark the center as well. And these are, again, marks made with this
the friction pen.
Yeah, friction pen that irons
because
away.
Because then they disappear when you iron it.
Exactly. So then we take, and my next sample shows that I've taken my pinking shears, my rotary cutter, and, well, actually, even before that, I sew my base.
So the center line is a stitching line.
Right. That's
the center circle.
Right, the first stitching that you do. And then I've cut each of the lines down to about 1/2 inch from the circle.
So not quite all the way.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so next we sew 8 times. And here on this sample, you can see that I've sewn, I fold the circle and I start maybe about 1/4 inch in from the edge and then taper my stitch down to the stitching that's the base of the circle.
Sure, so start on the outside edge, and with these 4 layers, this would be a great place to start stitching on an anchor cloth or a scrap of felt folded.
Right.
Stitch on that felt and then stitching at that angle near the base. That's amazing.
And I just have a couple of these done.
So working your way around and
right, yeah.
Stitching the seams together, putting right sides together and stitching short little seams.
Right, that's all there is to it, unless you want to add some handles. And I like to add them this way, where I don't just put a little loop, I angle the ends of my loop. This is about 1/2 inch wide by 2 inches long, any size that you want.
Sure.
This is where you use your individual ideas and
You're
creativity.
the designer. You could make different size handles depending on what you'd like, or contrasting ones too.
Right, and if I had a different color piece of felt, I mean, that'd be neat too, just
Sure.
to add another color.
That's perfect for using your wool felt scraps,
Right.
little handles.
Yeah, so
If you could make it decorative too. You know, you could put one little mini handle on every section,
You could.
and then it's very decorative, like almost a scallop edge.
It is. So that's the
Amazing.
Wedge Bowl, and various different ways to put this together.
These are wonderful, Mary. And I think the hardest part would be what colors of felt to choose and which side to choose as the right side.
Oh, I know. We have lots of decisions to make in life. This is one of them.
Our next Felt So Smart project are Mitten gift card holders.
These are very simple and fun. I also like to use them as winter decorations if you don't use a total Christmas holiday theme.
Sure, that's a great idea though, but you could make a whole bunch of these and decorate an entire Christmas tree with mittens.
That's right. You could also take a piece of precious family jewelry and sew a decorative stitch to highlight it. I've got different rickrack and trims, some tiny buttons, rickrack over here.
Rickrack. I like this, Mary, the little Rudolph red wool felt bead.
Yeah, this is a Creativity Plus project.
A blank canvas, really.
It is. And here's one with just decorative stitching and one button. The pinking shears work well here. Just because it's a kind of a tight curve to sew or to cut around. And then you can sew loops to hang these with.
You have some loops in the center, some on the edges, felt loops, ribbon loops.
Yeah, whatever you like.
The sky's the limit.
Yeah. And then you can put in money.
Oh, sure.
or gift cards.
Some cash.
I've got a gift card here, a love note, to someone. So you can be imaginative with what you put
Sure,
inside of
sure.
these two.
A prayer pocket.
That's right. You could also make 25 and have an advent calendar
Absolutely.
of mittens. So,
or 12 days of Christmas.
yeah, right, if you're lazy. So here's how.
And really, you have to embellish it first. So.
Well, right, yeah, one layer at a time. So I have this piece
I'll move
here.
these over, Mary.
I've sewn some decorative stitches and some trims on. You can see the outline of my mitten shape. I did use some stabilizer under here because I felt like I needed some extra, a more stable base. I haven't always felt that way, but you can use it if you wish. Our next step would be to cut this with the pinking shears.
Sure. We'd cut that out.
Yeah.
Just around that traced line. So, but we kind of skipped over the pattern. The pattern's included in your Felt So Smart.
It is.
A pattern, and you would just trace that or cut that out, and then trace around that paper shape of the mitten. And really, I see some of them are facing this way and left and right. There's really no right or wrong side and no right or wrong way to do it. But you're just cutting out around that trace line. So
that's right.
Earlier projects, some of those trace lines were a stitching line.
Yeah.
The mitten gift card holders are the cutting line, that trace line.
That's it.
And
so
you've used the friction pen, so it will disappear when you cover that with a press cloth. In a little heat of an iron will make those markings just disappear.
Right. I try to be a little careful. That's why I'm not talking while I cut. And here at the top, I'll trim some of that stabilizer away. But then now we're ready to add this to another piece of felt.
And when you were showing me this, I thought I had to cut out the back side of the mitten right away, but you don't.
No, I have this sample to show that the mitten is placed on a block of felt. This is 4 by 7, and whether it's decorated or not, you would, and you could potentially use some wonder clips to hold the two layers together at points, and then you just simply sew around the mitten shape.
Sure,
and
maybe a 1/4 inch in, or the width of your presser foot following that edge of that mitten shape. But don't sew the top shut.
Yes, that would be a problem because otherwise you can't put the money in. So you could see here the stitching that goes around. And then the final step, well, 2 final steps. You trim away this excess felt. And you can use straight scissors, pinking shears, whatever, and then add a loop to the corner or to the center, whatever is your preference.
Sure. These are amazing, Mary, and so many options for creative embellishing, and you can make a theme, and really with the beautiful colors of wool felt that are available, the options are limitless, and all that's left to do is tuck in a little gift, and you have a beautiful little present to present to a friend.
Right, and to maybe work with children to make these as well.
That would be a great project to sew with youth.
And buttons. We have our button collection.
Right, absolutely. And you could really decorate an entire mitten with a whole bunch of buttons, make a button mitten. So many creative options to sew with your mitten gift card holders. And really, Mary, I want to thank you for joining us on Stitch It Sisters, and I hope you'll come back again soon and share more creative ideas.
Well, this is a pleasure for me. Thank you, Deanna.
We hope you've enjoyed the Stitch It Sisters project. You'll find this pattern, along with a limited number of bundle boxes, at stitchitsisters.com.
Be sure to tune in again for another Stitch It Sisters sewing adventure.
In the meantime, connect with Stitch It Sisters and friends on our social sites. Stitch It Sisters is made possible by Bernina, Clover, Benartex Fabrics, June Taylor, OESD Oklahoma Embroidery Supply and Design, and shopnzp.com.
Bernina, made to create.